Guys, the day has finally come. I've been waiting for. My Regium Godwinns are here. I raced home so that we could unpack these and talk about all the details. The figures, the accessories, the packaging, the price. You name it, we're going to talk about it. Stay tuned. The new generation is here, and I'm not talking about new gen era WWF, which essentially led to this team being created. I'm talking about the new generation of Hasttel Toy. He's finally moved on to premium articulated figures, and these are called Regiums. If you don't know about them, they are supposed to be in scale with Ultimates and Elites. The only thing missing as far as Ultimate articulation, I believe, is the drop-down hip and the toe articulation. But I do believe that most people that will be buying these are adult collectors who maybe don't really need that toe articulation, right? I think that is easy to cut loose. I compare these to Elites. And we have a couple here that we're going to compare them to size-wise and see if they scale well with WWE Elites. I even have some ringside collectibles, Legion of Doom next to me. I have some Ultimate Edition Undertakers. And I also have the most recent Godwinn figures from, that's right, Hasttel Toy. And just from looking at these right here, you can tell that the head sculpts are very similar to that of their recent retro style figures in the Grapplers and Gimmicks line. Just a little bit upgraded. So we have a slap bucket. We have the horseshoe necklace for Phineas, the duct tape. I love it. A lot of pieces here in these figures. Now, let's start off with the packaging. It is just a typical blister card bubble packaging. It has a picture of the superstars in the middle, their names on the side, all the accessories laid out. Now for this style figure, we are accustomed to getting these in boxes, right? But I truly believe that this isn't exactly intended to be kept in the package. That's my personal take on this. I think these are supposed to be taken out, displayed, posed, and played with. On the back, we have a little bit of a mission statement for Regium. We have Henry Godwinn and Phineas I Godwinn's stats. Doesn't have their weights or heights. However, I did look them up, and it said that Henry Godwinn is 6'4", and Phineas I Godwinn is 6'7". However, if you Google images of them standing up straight next to each other, they're the same size. So I'm going with 6'4" on this personally. Every picture I found, I didn't think that Dennis Knight looked like he was bigger than Mark Canterbury. Then it has a little bit of a copy for them. Some credits over here for Mitch is the creative lead, figure sculpts, Stefan Roy, Rocco the sculptor, and then packaging logo by Ricky Henry. So pretty cool. Even moving up, look, we have a UPC code there. Pretty official. Maybe they're planning to get these in some stores or maybe some catalogs as far as that, so that other stores can pack them up. So we're going to take a look at this. Does come with additional hands, accessories, and hats. I'm excited about the hats. At first glance, I think they look great. So we're going to rip these open and see. All right, so the bubble and the card are pretty on par with what we expect from Hasttel Toy. Well stuck to the actual paper. Comes off pretty smooth. All right. Now here it goes. Let's take a look at everything. First off, this is what I was curious about. A real metal chain on this horseshoe. Looks pretty up to par with a real horseshoe. So we have fists over here for Henry O. They look well sculpted. They look, you know, realistic enough. We have open C grips for Phineas, and these are a little bit unique take. I usually will call this like a gun hand, because that's what it looks like. They're holding a gun. So we have the slop bucket, which, as I said, is the same as the one that comes with the retro style figures. And we have their hats. Now the hats appear to be molded for each figure with different hair molding on the inside. So that's pretty cool. These aren't the exact same head, as you can see. Like one is bigger than the other. Now the hats, we have here the John Deere hat. Obviously doesn't have the John Deere logo on it. Green hat with the yellow outline where the John Deere logo would be. And then check this out. It is textured like an actual trucker hat. Even as the notches in the back. I love that. I think it's great. It's not just one piece smooth baseball hat. Same thing here. Another sculpted trucker hat. Also, I think the deco hits on this are pretty nice and clean. Pretty tough to get this kind of pattern onto an object like this, especially at this scale. All right, so my order came with a little note saying that to warm up the hands before you remove them or something like that. So I just went up and I heated up the whole figure, you know, did a little microwave of a little bowl of water, put them in there for a couple minutes, and you know, they seem like they are a little bit looser now. But I will say overall, they're pretty tight, which I say this all the time is not a bad thing. It's kind of just like your girlfriend. You'd rather her be tight than super loose, right? So I think that's the way to go. If you start off a figure loose, they're only going to get worse. At least you start off a figure tight joints, over time, it's going to loosen up on its own. So we're going to take a look at these. Like I said, they're tight, but they're movable. It's nothing crazy. They're ratchet joints, which I've said for years I prefer. If you don't know what the ratchet joint is, think of the inner workings of a BCA or a Jazzwares figure, or even the Ringside Collectibles exclusive unsanctioned figures. Mattel figures are not ratchet joints. So with a ratchet joint, listen, you hear every click that it moves, and it kind of holds in place. So I think ratchet joints are better for posing. But let's look at this. So starting off with Henry O. Godwinn, he's got his black boots. You can see a little bit of water still on him from the bowl. Obviously, I can tell just by looking at this that the legs, lower torso, and crotch piece are cast in blue, and the upper torso is clearly cast in yellow, painted over to match, and I think that they match them very, very well, shockingly. And same thing with the skin tone. It matches the rest of the figure pretty damn well. These were obviously cast in skin tone, and then we have a painted black elbow pad, painted yellow on the shirt, and then these were cast in yellow too. So pretty well done as far as matching the colors and making it look fluid as a figure. So these do not have a drop down hip, these do not have butterfly joints, and these do not have the toe articulation. So that is what separates them from that of an Ultimate Edition figure, which I have an Ultimate Edition figure right here. We have the Undertaker, and this is debut Undertaker, and Undertaker, I believe, is 6'10", they say. And as I said, I believe that Henry O. Godwinn is 6'4", and I would say the comparison of the two, it's pretty in line with real height. So let's get them lined up. And there they are. So I think the scale is great, which I gotta say is one of the hardest things to accomplish, especially when you're creating your own line and then kind of bending it to the rules of another company's line, a la Mattel, right? Everybody wants things in scale with Mattel, so it's a tough thing to do. When I was looking into doing figures, that was the biggest deterrent, and it was very, very scary to think that, like, you spend all this money, and these are very expensive to mold. You're looking at about $20,000 just in molding before production starts, you know what I mean? So to get them in scale with something else, perfect scale, very, very tough, and I would say this is pretty damn good. Let's see how they scale with Ringside Collectibles unsanctioned. So here is a Road Warrior Animal, and I don't know how tall Road Warrior Animal is. I do know that the Ringside unsanctions were a little bit underscaled, so right there. But as far as I'm looking at, toe to toe, he's probably about 6'2", so I don't really know his actual height, but if it's around 6'2", I would say they're pretty well in scale with these Godwinns. All right, let's take a look at Phineas before we put the accessories on. There he is. Now, same thing. I can tell you right now, his arms are cast in red. I can tell that this is painted skin tone, but I think it matches pretty well to the face. The bottom portions, the legs, obviously in blue again. Brown boots, blue, blue, and then this is obviously cast in red. And again, I think they match the skin tone on the neck very, very well to the face. And I gotta say, they matched it better than Jazzwares does. So overall, I think these are pretty good figures, but we're gonna test. Okay, the hands come out fine. You guys know me, I'm not big on changing hands unless it's character specific, you know, kind of like this Undertaker. I like those hands, so I'm gonna take regular C-grips out. These, there is no Godwinn hand sign, so I don't really need to interchange these hands, right? All right, let's talk about the head sculpts. Pretty good. I think it looks like both appropriate person, Mark Canterbury, Dennis Knight. But what I want to talk about is how closely related they are to the most recent retros. They're not exact. It's not the same sculpt. It's newly done, but they kept a lot of the defining components. I kind of like this hair on the retro. I think that would have came off really, really good for this Henry O. But still, this does replicate his hair pretty well. And then here we have Phineas. Damn near exact. It's almost like they just mirrored it. You can tell that it's not because the hair molding is obviously different. But look at the face. The opening in the mouth is on the left here. It's on the right there. It's almost like they just mirrored the facial expression, which quite potentially maybe they did. I don't know. Now, my favorite thing about this Phineas is the wrist tape, because there was a point in time, not for long, there was a point in time where Phineas actually wore duct tape for wrist tape, which I think is so cool. There's certain things that wrestlers do that kind of stick with them forever, right? And it's almost like a defining factor of that person's look. Think about Smash from Demolition. Everybody talks about that elbow pad over his bicep, right? For me, with Phineas, I always remembered that duct tape because I was like, man, that's so country boy, right? That's so Southern, like to not care about getting athletic tape. You're just going to go out and you're going to get some duct tape from Walmart and put it around your wrists. It works. It's the same concept, same idea. It's just way more rugged, right? And I loved that about him. So, all right, we're going to put these accessories on, but we'll talk about the one thing everybody's talking about, man. We're talking about the price, which I got to say has kind of overshadowed the figures themselves. So I got to admit, I expected these to be between $110 and $120, and I'll tell you why. As somebody who collects independent figures, retros typically go for $40 to $45, sometimes $50 a piece. A retro is typically cast in 4 molds or 5 molds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the figure, right? Some are 4. Now, these figures are numerous pieces, and multiple molds need to be made for this. Like I said, you're looking at about a $15,000 to $20,000 mold right here. And that's before production, right? That's before you get any product. That's before they start cutting steel. It's expensive to make these. So I knew going in that these were probably going to be $55 to $60 each. That was my expectation, especially as somebody who buys big rubber guys, and they are $50 each, and those are only 2 molds, right? They might be larger, but I think people see them like, oh, they're big figures. That doesn't really matter, okay? The size actually has a pretty minimal deal to do with the price, you know, and how much it costs to produce. It's really how much goes into the mechanisms of these figures. And there's a lot of bells and whistles and pins, like even a little crotch joint right here that's separate. That's, you got to mold that. So there's a lot that goes into it. I expected these to be about $110, $120. When they came out, that's what they were, okay? And I didn't see a problem with that. To me, it made sense based on the market value of other independent figures. However, I did notice that the community was not as understanding of that and didn't really think it was fair. I don't know why, considering, like I said, big rubber guys are $50 each. You know, zombie sailors, I got them. They were $50 each. I think when I got my Power Towns, they were $60 each. So they're same price, you know. And these have a lot more articulation and mobility than a Power Town, I got to say. I did see the community. And I saw how it was affecting, you know, the narrative of these figures. So I reached out to Mitch. I do have his phone number, so I texted him in a group thread with somebody else who I'm not going to name in the community. And I voiced my concerns. I said, although I don't see a problem with the price, because I really don't. I thought that was a fine baseline. I said, I do think that you need to reconsider the price, because it is overshadowing your figures. The narrative is nothing to do with how they look, how they perform, or anything like that. The narrative of your figures are that they're way too expensive, so now people don't want to buy them. He didn't respond for quite some time. He thought it over, and then, the other person in the group also agreed with me, and he came back and he said, I'm going to change the price. So he changed the price, and, I got to say, I'm kind of proud that I had something to do with it, because that's what we're here for, right? We're here to be a community, and I think Mitch did the right thing. Starting off his line, you're going to take a loss. I told him that. You're going to take a loss. It's your very first figure in this line. You have to take a loss because you want to get these in people's hands. Lose the money before you make the money, right? You just gotta. So he is taking a little bit of a loss, is my understanding. I don't know how much. I don't get numbers. But now they are $79.99, which is way lower than I would have ever thought. So if you were even kicking tires on these are cheaper than any other Mattel Jazzwares independent equivalent. And I'm talking about, obviously, Zombie Sailor. I'm talking about Power Town. So if you're interested in giving these a try, I definitely suggest it. I do think that they're a very nice piece. I got to figure out where I'm putting them. If I'm going to put them with Mattels, or if I'm going to put them with kind of the miscellaneous shelf for now, where we have, unsanctioned. I have some Storm collectibles and things of that nature. So overall, man, I think these freaking rule. And my boy Fig Vault got them before me, and he had me so hyped. He was like, dude, these are awesome. They look great. They're a lot of fun. The accessory's great. I love that it's a real chain accessory. I love that he can hold the slot bucket. I love that it doesn't look too undersized. It kind of looks realistic. I love the hats and how they fit. Honestly, I wish that his hats in the retro line fit as well and snug as this. And maybe in the future they will. Maybe that's something they're working on. But yeah, head over to HasttelToy.com. I will be completely honest with you. I am glad that I got these. I am. I think these are a great product. I was very pleased with them. I will say, I think a lot of the molding is better than that of these unsanctioned figures. And that's not to take anything away from them. I like the hands better. I like the musculature better. I like the scale better. Everything. I really do. I think the biggest downfall is this slight, blink and you miss it, change in size right here from the hip swivel to the upper thigh. It's very, very slightly smaller. That is the biggest complaint. And for somebody who's never made an Elite style figure with, 30 points of articulation, something like that, I think that is a damn good job. So I don't know if you're watching this, Mitch, but my hat's off to you. I think that this is a good product you got here, and I hope that it continues on, and I hope that, people buy these and support the line and see that these are a pretty good equivalent to Elites and Unrivaled. Arguably, I would say that these are better than, in the body molds and everything, than that of a Jazzwares. There's a lot of stuff. There's little kinks to work out. Like I said, these hip swivels definitely could be reworked or whatever in due time. But even how they did the whitewashing on this overall, that, in my opinion, is better than that of the Farmer Brock Elite Chase. How it was just that bright royal blue, and there was like nothing to it. This looks more realistic to denim overalls. So just my 2 cents. That is not me saying that these are better than the Mattel line. What I'm saying is that there's parts of these that I think are very well done and better than how Mattel might do them or has done them on certain figures or Jazzwares. Like I said, the skin tone matching on these figures, I think, is a great job. I think it's better than that of Jazzwares. So Jazzwares has been doing the same thing for 5 years and hasn't really improved on it. So what that tells me, when I look at Hasttel Toys catalog, starting off with Smoke Train and then ending up on figures like this, that tells me that we can expect some growth in the Regium series. So my hope is by the end of this coming year, 2026, when Regiums of, that time period are in hand, I think that they will be exceptional. I do. The only other thing that I would love to see is maybe get these in a box. I think the box look is going to appeal to more collectors, whereas the carded look, we don't really associate these premium action figures with that. So a lot of cool things here, man. A lot of cool stuff. And I think Mitch has a lot to be proud of. And not sure if anybody watching has bought these yet or plans to buy these. Comment below, let me know what you think. But I dig the figures. I think they're a lot of fun, man. And here we have the whole crew. So, again, they look great. Now I'm looking at them on the screen right now. I know it looks like they tower over the Road Warriors and the Undertaker. That's just because the depth is different. They're a little bit closer to the camera. And the camera is tilted down. So that's why that is. But I'm telling you, the scale's there, man. The scale is there. Gonna put them toe to toe. Toe to toe. There you go. So 6'4" to 6'10". I would say, realistically, from the top of that hat to his head, yeah, it's probably about 5-6 inches. So, man, I gotta say, Mitch, I'm impressed. I think these came out better than I expected. So, congrats. HastelToy.com. Get over there today and pick up your set of Regium. Henry O. Godwinn and Phineas I. Godwinn, which, if you don't already know, as you should, Henry O. Godwinn's initials spell out hog, Phineas's spell out pig, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace. Are you a wrestling figure collector of WWE, Mattel, AEW, Jazzwares, and everything in between? Then you need Fig Heel's Wrestling Figure Encyclopedia, the modern edition covering all releases from 2010 to present day. Featuring over 7,000 photos of action figures from the hottest brands, including independent toy makers. Keep track of what you have, want, and need, including loose, mock, and overall collection value. With figure photography by Matthew Goldberg, the Wrestling Figure Encyclopedia is a must-have for collectors. Full-color paperback and hardcover editions available now at heelbooks.com. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at FigHeel. Pick up my book series on Amazon and my merchandise on ProWrestlingTees.com/FigHeel. Join my official sponsor, Whatnot, at WhatHeal.com and receive $15 off your first purchase.